With just a handful of weeks away from release, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition has gotten itself a new trailer showcasing even more in-game footage, including combat and UI updates. But why stop with just what's new? Let's also give a quick refresher on combat as well for those of you joining the Blade family for the first time. Hey everyone, it's Yggdrasiel, and today we are here to talk about all of the information we have so far on Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, including the plethora of new footage and info we've gotten from the Year is 2054 trailer that just recently dropped, as well as information direct from Monolith Soft and Nintendo of Japan. This video will be mostly spoiler-free with regards to the story, save for the discussion of the new Epilogue content, and I will be sure to give a hefty spoiler warning in advance, as well as timestamps down below for your convenience. Now, just before we get started, as always, if you enjoy what I have to say in this video, please feel free to leave it a like, let me know what you think down below, and subscribe for more Xenoblade Chronicles and Monolith Soft content. And with that said, we've got a heck of a lot to discuss, so let's get stuck in. Now, while many have focused on the Year is 2054 trailer posted by Nintendo over on YouTube, we have a few other resources with snippets of information and a whole bevy of new footage. All of this additional footage is from the game's Japanese website and was pulled and compiled by Perfectly Nintendo, so thank you very much for allowing us to see the promotional footage so much more clearly. We also have information that was posted later on in the same day by Monolith Soft directly, posting an article on the Nintendo Japan website. I have compiled all of this information in a way that hopefully will flow and transition smoothly, so let's get started by showing off the trailer and covering what elements are presented. Afterward, I will post any other elements of the game that have not yet been represented and discuss a few more hopes on what remains to be seen. The opening of the game begins with our first look at the opening scenes of the game in their definitive glory. The white whale having escaped from Earth after being destroyed, floating along an unknown course for 2 years in space, when all of a sudden a fleet of ghosts, these metallic-like yet completely organic beings, assault the ship. Sustaining intense damage, we crash land onto planet Mira, the white whale falling apart over the skies above it, and in the process dropping the Lifehold, a chamber that held most of the ship's passengers in stasis, waiting for the day they would be awakened when a new home would be found. With the limited resources in unknown hostile environments, it is on Mira that we must push our body to the fullest, traversing over ledges, swimming like Olympians, super jumping like Mario over insane leaps, and really getting a sense of exploring a whole bevy of locales. And yes, in case you're wondering, there is no fall damage in this game. The scene then shifts towards a data probe. These are essentially survey devices that, once you install them, will reveal segments on the map for better understanding of your surroundings, allowing you to see main objectives in each subregion on the map, and allowing you to mine the segment for critical resources. You can see which segment houses a data probe through the use of the segment menu, one of 3 menus tied to navigation and Frontier Nav. While we don't have any footage of either the map or Frontier Nav menus, we can assume that the map will have names for each region as well as list our fast travel points, and that Frontier Nav will host our mining node and resource information. On the segment map that we get to see in this trailer then, we can see that each segment bears a site for data probe installation, denoted by this icon of a drill. This icon of a red eye and fangs denotes segments where our main objective is to slay a unique monster known as Tyrants in Xenoblade Chronicles X. And the chest icon quite obviously denotes segments where opening a specific resource will clear that segment's main objective. If I recall correctly, locked segments would indicate that the objective for that segment will be revealed at a later time, or is related to a quest that we can accept by an NPC back either in LA or by Blade members that are surveying the area. There are also these green circles with arrows pointing down on them that, if I had to take a strong guess, I would assume these to be quest objectives for quests that we have accepted and are tracking. These could be enemies or items, and I have something to back this up shortly. Before we move on from this, I also just want to point out that survey rates return for each continent and for Mir as a whole, denoted in the top right of the menu, and X and Y coordinates are also presented in the central lower part of the screen, which should greatly aid for directly finding what you need. I personally would have liked a Z-axis for some of the myriad of caves and areas in the game, but this will more than suffice for most players' needs. Following this, we get another scene of opening a mechanical chest, which is then immediately followed up by our first look at exploring with the UI active, and this already has great implications on quality of life changes. First up, please look at that text size. Really, I'm not inching closer and closer to the screen to the point where my back is gonna break. It's so nice and clearly visible and is just the tip of the quality defining change iceberg that we are seeing in this release. Now then, the footage highlights use of the follow ball, aka the navigation system, but unlike its original iteration, we can use the follow ball now to collect items directly. What's more, collectibles' direct locations are displayed right on the minimap, using a green icon not all too unsimilar to what we saw on the segments map. This is directly built off of the quality of life features for item collection in Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive, updated with the direct navigation. The quest currently being shown, Proficiency Exam 5, is from a series of quests that are simultaneously given in order to obtain our Skell license. And this is absolutely insane. And again, I really have to say, this is an excellent feature. The Collectopedia in Xenoblade Chronicles X is absolutely gigantic. I can still vividly remember burning away hours in Cauldros trying to find something in a cave at like 3 or 4 in the morning in game time, and I just couldn't find what I needed, to only see that it spawned somewhere else at 7 in the morning. Oh my goodness. Now I really earnestly hope that this feature is not limited to items that are required only for quests, but that remains to be seen. The quest currently being shown then is Proficiency Exam 5, which is from a series of quests that are simultaneously given in order to obtain our initial Skell license. Right next to the normal mission label are 3 logos. If my hunch is correct, these appear to be class logos, given that the blue one on the right is the class icon for Duelist. At least, again, that's what I believe these are. The other 2 don't quite appear to be similar to any other class logo from the Wii U version, so I may be entirely off the mark, or perhaps the icons have gotten reworked a little bit just to have them stand out a little more from each other. We have a few more bits of exploration, this time of Noctilum and a pan out of Primordia before returning to a clean, definitive shot of a promotional scene where Cross would get in their Skell in the Skell Maintenance Harbor, and then beautifully soaring through the skies as we get more footage of Skells in flight, in freefall, and above all, most beautifully and really perhaps just as great a quality of life feature as the text, I kid you not, is, for our sake of convenience and sanity, that is jumping. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this is a Skell with a flight module on that just jumped. That's it, it jumped and it landed, it did not enter flight mode. For those unaware, once players unlock the flight module in the original game, jumping while in a Skell would automatically trigger flight mode. Jumping would essentially become disabled at that point and cause a very strong disconnect while exploring, as the region's music would change to the flying theme, and then should you land again right away because you didn't intend to fly, it would restart the region's music from the very beginning. It's not a game-breaking change, it's not meta-defining, it's a small change that provides a lot of comfort and doesn't disturb your focus and flow while exploring. With a few more teases as to how Skells can move about, we then transition into our first new look at the combat UI, and also at Overdrive, essentially the main combat gimmick that replaces chain attacks in this game. So now then, let's go over combat a little bit more in depth, shall we? Again, let me point out exactly just how clear everything is to read in this game. I cannot stress enough how poor the initial UI text size was. Unless you were playing with a computer monitor and were up close, it would be so uncomfortable to play this game for too long while trying to read all of the information being thrown your way. Up above we have the enemy information, where we can make note of its full health bar, its full name, level, and enemy type. Debuffs and buffs will appear directly under the health bar. We can also see the name of major abilities that the opponent casts directly under the health bar, as well as what type of damage it is, denoted by the icon on the left. Just seeing what classification of damage type an ability is will already be great, because Xenoblade Chronicles X has a lot of weirdly specific damage attributes that are quite unique to it, such as thermal or gravity-based damage. and knowing what kind of damage you are going against is honestly half the battle of many of these encounters. It's also important to note smaller health bars with yellow bars underneath them that are present over select appendages of each enemy. These bars represent the health of each appendage, and when broken can stagger the enemy or prevent them from using certain abilities. Over to our left, we have our character portraits neatly cleaned up, showing us our 4 party members, their names, levels, experience bar, and amount of experience that we currently have, as well as our tension point bar and tension point amount. Buffs and debuffs are displayed to the right of each character's health bar. Now, tension is an altogether unique feature to Xenoblade Chronicles X and should not be confused with the tension system in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Tension is earned and accumulated by performing auto attacks and can cap out at 3,000 points for each character, although that cap can increase through passive abilities and traits. Tension points can be spent to use arts that require them as a prerequisite, or you can use all 3,000 points either to revive a fallen party member or to activate Overdrive, which we will talk about shortly, as I would just like to discuss the standard parts of our art palette. Much like Xenoblade Chronicles 1, our arts are separated into 5 main categories denoted by their color. Orange arts are melee, while yellow arts will employ ranged attacks. Purple arts are used to apply status debuffs, while green arts provide recovery buffs to allies. Lastly, auras provide their own buffs on timers, similar to the auras of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Think of green arts like small healing and shielding, while blue arts are longer lasting positive effects like increasing your evasion or raising your aggro for a set amount of time. You can also see that some of these arts have a glowing circle set around them. These represent arts that have been allowed to charge for double their cooldown time. By choosing to wait to use an art until it has reached this stage, the art's effects often will gain new bonuses and their numerical values will be increased. So think stronger crits or bigger shields. One last thing to note about arts is that physical and ranged art attacks will only lower their cooldowns, respectively, when their character is wielding their respective weapon. In essence, if a melee art goes on cooldown, it will only start to tick down if your character is wielding its melee weapon. If your character is wielding their melee weapon and uses a ranged attack art, they will also immediately swap to their ranged weapon, and the cooldowns of melee arts will not go down. We can use X to swap our primary weapons between melee and ranged, and the text above will display what section of the boss we are facing. It's interesting to note that the definitive version of the game has dropped the use of altitude when facing opponents. The original version would factor in if you were high or low compared to an enemy or its appendage, but does not appear in this UI at all. Looking below our arts palette reveals the soul stage bar on the left and a new cooldown refresh bar on the right. The soul stage bar has 3 tiers, and one is earned each time we complete a soul challenge, essentially quick time events where you press B to respond to something happening during the fight. Successfully performing a soul challenge earns us buffs for each tier, and naturally for longer fights, you really want to be up on tier 3 for as long as possible. The cooldown refresh bar on the right, however, is what grabs a lot of attention as it is a completely new feature. By pressing Y over an art that is on cooldown, it seems that we can expend some of this bar's resource in order to reset the cooldowns of said art and immediately activate it. And may I say, I really agree with everyone that says this should have been a feature in Xenoblade 1 Definitive. I mean, the fact that we have the option to immediately reset a cooldown will increase our range of responses in dire situations, and will also let us keep up the offense like in the case of this Overdrive. So let's talk about Overdrive then. Overdrive changes our central option into a gear that counts the amount of hits and starts a timer, indicating how much time we have while in Overdrive. By using arts in certain orders based on their colors, Overdrive can yield a variety of effects such as increasing appendage damage, increasing debuff times, gaining more experience, and the cooldowns of our arts are drastically reduced. All of the information presented on the right hand side of the screen is completely new, and honestly, thank goodness for it. Unless you were watching how-to videos or looking up guides, it was highly unlikely that the average player could ever grasp the ins and outs of Overdrive. The cheat sheet is clear, it's concise, we have the option to close it if we feel it is cluttering up our UI too much, or if we know what we're doing. It is a simple and elegant addition that I feel will make one of the Xenoblade series' most difficult to master gameplay elements that much more universally friendly to approach and wield. Next up is a combat clip of the party fighting a tyrant with a full group of skells. You can note the monster is a tyrant by its unique art surrounding its health bar, and of course the ever-lovable Monolith Soft name styling for unique mobs. The Skell UI is ever so slightly different. You have the name of the model of the Skell and its series type in place of the name, though you can personally rename them at the Blade Barracks. The tension point bar is replaced by the gear point bar, and it functions essentially the same. Its primary purpose is for triggering overdrive in our Skells. Skell art functions highly similar to basic arts, but it's important to note a few things. For one, Skell arts are assigned based on what gear you have equipped to your Skell, and will also consume Skell fuel, noted on the right side of the screen. Anytime you use a Skell art, there is a small chance to trigger Cockpit Mode, a small window where all Skell arts instantly come off cooldown as we get a sweet look at the view from inside our Skell as we tear into our enemies. What's more, the Skell is invincible during this time frame, although it can get debuffed. And lastly with Skells, although we don't have footage, I did mention that Skells can overdrive as well, though it is quite a bit different. For starters, Skell overdrive has several rounds where no fuel is consumed, and cockpit mode is much more likely to activate. Skell overdrive grants various bonus effects, and the timer can be extended based on the number of cockpit modes, as well as through augments or traits. And that should just about cover the gist of combat as well as new elements to its UI, so let's go over to the other teases from the trailer. Cutting immediately to this uniquely modeled Skell being chased by some monsters, and may I say what a beauty this Skell is. Previously confined to the concept art pages of the Art of Mira, the poorly translated Fresberg is most likely going to be called the Hraesvelg or the Hraesvelger. It is a unique Skell making its way to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive. Sporting a katana slung to its back and 3 large thrusters that honestly look like a goofy face screaming, I'm not gonna lie. Ha, I ruined it for you. The Hraesvelg shares its name with the Japanese version of Garfont Village in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Which then leads some to think that the Skell type will be called Garfont as well. Regardless of its name, it's wonderful to see designs tucked into the Art of Mira that are going to be given a second shot at life through the definitive edition. After weaving its way around, the pilot of the Hraesvelg steps on out, and out comes a new character we don't know, a humanoid masked character dressed in a white plug suit, and has their face hidden by a rather uniquely designed full-face helmet. I have to assume the slash on the right is a little jab at the X symbol representative of Xenoblade, but there's also a little bit more that this design is going on. Take a look at the center chest piece of the suit, and you will find a Blade logo strapped squarely over where, say, a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Blade would usually have their core crystal. This Blade symbol over where a Blade's core crystal would be is almost certainly a fun and cheeky little nod, but until we know who is under the mask, we'll just have to wait and see what's really going on with this character. All I can say is I'm sure this character is friendly and more than likely recruitable, or at the very least is friendly enough to let us have a go with their Skell license and their unique Skell model, which seems to have its own unique flight capabilities, so this will be quite fun to mess around with indeed. And with that, we have reached the end of the gameplay segment of the trailer, and definitive cutscenes of the main story take place with characters like Goetia and the Rothians, while showing that Skell technology is not unique to humanity. Actually, even more races have that technology than we thought, as we get a close-up of 2 unique Skells, dubbed Nailnals, that were originally enemies excavated during a standard mission in base Xenoblade X. These Nailnal Albus and Furvus series of Skells have some rather interesting design choices, such as their main weapon being scepters, ice skate-like legs, the bearing of silhouettes of faces on their chests, and most prominently, floating spheres over each shoulder with metallic hands jutting out reaching for them. Wow. Well, as they fly away, the trailer then cuts to a close-up of yet another new character and yet another concept brought out from the Art of Mira, given a second shot at life. This here is Nailnal. Yes, exactly the same as the Skells before her. Nailnal is a Clurian, the second of their kind that we know of right alongside Celica, denoted primarily through the lagomorphic ears and facial tattoos, and if her name and connection to the Skells before her are anything to go by, I'm sure she knows a thing or 3 about Skell technology and can hopefully serve as a friendly figure to our party. And just like that, it's back to updated cutscene footage for the breadth of the trailer, cutting to an invasion of NLA by the Gangland forces as Blade mounts a full-scale defense of the city. And with so much at stake, it'd be remiss of me to share exactly what's going on or happening, so let's cut ahead to the last 20 seconds of the trailer and straight into completely unknown territory. At this point, I would like to encourage those of you who would like to skip this segment of the video using the timestamp provided down below, as this will cover information about the new story elements in Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. Go on, scroll down and click away, cause I really can't contain my excitement much longer, and alright, here we go. With a blast of triumphant music that I can only hope is more of Hiroyuki Sawano's compositions, we return to a now almost familiar scene of Lao and his friend the Black Knight, and may I say, what a tease this man continues to be each time we see more of him. With still no clear shot of his face, the only new features we can make use of are his ruffled light hair and a new voice line. "People still need me. Humanity still needs me," he says, giving more credence to my belief that the Black Knight is the unsung hero, and there's quite a lot to prove that this time around. Now again, the unsung hero is a character with strong ties to Elma and many higher-up members of Blade, and is a figure that sacrificed himself in the confrontation with the ghosts that ambushed the White Whale, ejecting him and his Skell into outer space in the process. In part of Yelv's Affinity missions, you even stumble across some findings from the sacrifice in the eastern beaches of Oblivia, and lest you forget, the scene taking place between Lao and the Black Knight is also around these same beaches. Given that he says humanity still needs him, the fact that this takes place right after the events of the Lifehold, and the fact that he seems to have intervened in rescuing Lao, I grow more and more certain that the Black Knight knows some of the many mysteries surrounding Mira in relation to the revelations that were uncovered after the Lifehold was discovered. In fact, I am so willing to bet that this man has so much to reveal that I am going to even speculate that the Black Knight isn't even a human from Earth, but is of the same race as Elma. His ability to survive and outmaneuver his opponents, his understanding of the aspects of Mira, and other details that will be attributed to him in the next few scenes leave almost no doubt in my mind. So let's roll right into the next scene, again taking place in Oblivia, as the team is being bombarded by several Skell-like enemies, except they aren't exactly Skells, they are ghosts, beings of complete organic matter, and one of the two primary forces that battled above planet Earth, leading to its destruction. With dozens of them circling the skies above, however, a lone Ares Skell comes to the rescue, and it's one we've actually seen before, though many of you may not recall it. As I mentioned earlier, the unsung hero fought the ghosts in defense of the White Whale, and sure enough, the Skell itself was able to survive the space surrounding Mira, perhaps likely being brought down or transported via some force that I'm sure the Black Knight is going to explain. One really cool thing to note about this particular Ares model, please direct your attention to its shoulders and chest region to see framework not all too unlike the Ouroboros models of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The tandem models, in fact, that rely on two people to control them. In fact, for some time now, the concept artwork of the Skell, and those also of the ghosts, were highly compared to the designs of Ouroboros. Many fans continue to speculate that because they weren't able to make full use of these designs in the original Xenoblade Chronicles X, that they were repurposed as the framework for Ouroboros designs in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If there's more than meets the eye, we'll just have to wait and see for ourselves. This scene will then transition out to who I presume is Lao throwing away his helmet as he meets up with the expeditionary team of Cross, Elma, Lynn, Doug, Irina, Gwyn, and most interestingly, El, our most intelligent alien friend that is actually native to planet Mira. They all come together to gaze at our gorgeous new region, currently only dubbed as the Floating Continent by Monolith Soft in their article. And crazy enough, yet again, it's not an entirely unknown area to us. In an interview in The Art of Mira, level designer Ko Arai was asked about the various floating rocks throughout the overworld, to which they mentioned that a floating reef area composed of rocks was initially designed even before the concept of Skell flight. and in fact, for whatever reason, it was scrapped due to flying itself. It didn't even have a backstory or relevance to the main story at the time, but the concept survived and now will play a crucial role as the main hub for the epilogue story. Silhouettes in the background imply that this region floats above the waters north of Oblivia, again being a sly nod that this region is intertwined with the journey of the unsung hero and is almost assuredly holding the answers to many of Mira's mysteries. Adding even more fuel to that statement, Alma herself says that the Skell was always leading the way, guiding us to where we are needed. The last two things I would like to point out are the central spire, as well as the Manon ship tucked away on the right. The Manon one is more easy to speculate upon, so let's start with that one, as it is most likely just the one that our pizza-addled chums use, and could well serve as our main base of operations at this floating continent. Our large spire then I will for now call the Rose Garden, due to very similar concept art from, you guessed it, the Art of Mira. Most interestingly, some of the text for the concept art's page imply that this is where the Ganglion were created and born. Refreshing the minds of some of all of you, because it's been such a long time, the Samar Federation, also known as the supposed long-lost progenitors of the humans of Earth, were a race so advanced that they created and enslaved races such as the Ganglion. Ganglion leader Luxar himself believes that this planet is the long-thought lost homeworld of the Samarians. So, for what is essentially a giant Samarian experiment facility to exist in Mira wouldn't be that far-fetched, or the fact that it might resemble some of the ancient ruins left behind in Kaldros. In fact, if this further reinforces that Mira is the Samar homeworld, could this go on to explain why Mira is so drawn to supporting the humans of Earth, that it responds to them as the descendants of they who once ruled over it? Could we perhaps see some more, because that's all that's left to say as this trailer concludes, and we are left looking for just a few more answers, but we are not done talking about everything we've seen just yet. We still have a handful of announcements and things to cover based on the Japanese website, and additionally, let's also discuss some promotional content for the game. Unfortunately, there is no mention of any special edition, although some merchandise was uncovered, but is believed to be exclusive to Japan for the time being. What we do know, however, is that an in-game pre-order bonus is being offered for purchasing the definitive edition in advance. A support bundle that one can redeem at the Blade Barracks after Chapter 3. Pre-ordering the game will score you 100,000 credits, the Advanced Iron Knife and Storm Assault Rifle, the Advanced Survival Gear Set, 6 weapon augments, and 5 armor augments. As they are redeemable at quite an early level and the augments are only rank 1, these will only be a nice little boost to exploration and shouldn't have all too much longevity for your character building. Purchasing the digital version of the game will also give you a 14 free day trial code for Nintendo Switch Online services, so you can jump right into the mission to explore and secure Planet Mira alongside your fellow Blade members. And while we're talking about online, let's discuss those capabilities, which as far as we know, will play very similarly to the original so far. At the main menu, you can join an online lobby of up to 32 players working together in your own respective worlds to clear objectives such as killing X amount of a type of monster or collecting a set amount of resources. You can also join a group of up to 4 players by interacting with the online party features in the Blade Barracks to tackle missions, and the online super bosses will make a grand return, where after a certain amount of time, any and all are welcome to challenge the Yggdrasiel Zero and claim as many resources as possible. What's more, you can find avatars at specific points throughout the overworld and recruit them into your party. The return of online features will almost certainly see the return of reward tickets as well, which are the primary reward currency that you obtain for completing any online objective. These tickets can be exchanged for a variety of goods, from instant fuel for your Skell to absolutely every single monster drop in the game. With the online explanation out of the way, let's move on to customization for your character. Our first look at the character creation menu shows largely the same level of customization as the original entry. Characters will have a plethora of hairstyles, hair colors, facial features, and voice types to go through, and it's cool to see that new designs have been added. Many people have already taken note that we can don Mithra or Nia's hairstyle, and there are face paints for Monado icons as well as Nia's signature markings, So let's see who's going to be the first to recreate our favorite Welsh catgirl in the world of Xenoblade X. I'd like to assume that there's also a hairstyle attributed to Rex. And with all these references to past characters, now is also a good opportunity for me to bring up that Nintendo has announced that reruns of all the prior Xenoblade series icons for Nintendo Switch members will return from January 30th all the way to March 20th. I'm quite confident that come the actual release day, we will also likely see some Xenoblade X characters join the icon roster, so make sure you keep some platinum points on the side just in case. The last few points I would like to bring to your attention are subjects in the Japanese website for the game that I didn't yet bring up. First, you'll notice that in much of the in-game footage, we can see that the level cap of characters has been increased from 60, with us seeing some levels as high as the 80s. I feel that we will see a level cap of 99 to better match the other Xenoblade games. Now then, I'd like to bring your attention to the Blade tab, which sports beautiful new HD renders for the bulk of majority characters, from Elma, Lyn, and Tatsu, to just about every recruitable party member. I mean, look at Gwyn, the absolute Chad. Elle looks awesome, and unfortunately, Celica is gonna be the downgrade. The ears drastically reduced, and the facial tattoos drastically dimmed down. I'm not sure what quite they're going for with the Clurians, but I'm a little disappointed, I won't lie on this one. It does sting quite a little bit. I would also like to point out that the recruitable section does not list Nagi, even though he is playable, and actually he has his own unique section just below Vandom. This most likely is just due to the fact that Nagi serves as an executive commander overseeing Blade, but the tiniest little bit of me has some copium that this is just gonna fuel my hope to see Vandom as playable this time around. A guy can dream. The Coming Soon tab then will discuss the Epilogue story, hinting to and adding credence to my belief that Monolith Soft still has another trailer or two to present. One of them with even more heavy-handed information with regards to what revelations are in store for us, but that is where we are going to be calling it for today. Personally, there are a few more things I would love to see just to truly set my heart at rest, but everything is shaping up quite promising. I would love to see the actual main menu UI, as well as our systems UI, other subtle quality of life changes. It remains to be seen if we're going to be seeing a theater mode yet or not, and just a few other things here and there. But honestly, this game is shaping up to be absolutely gorgeous and truly what a definitive title for a game should be. I hope that you all enjoyed watching this video and are as excited for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition as I am, and I will be continuing to cover all of the details as they emerge. One last time, if you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, please feel free to leave it a like, let me know what you are most excited for down below, and subscribe for more Monolith Soft and Xenoblade content as it happens. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, have a great day.